you tonight that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, has an answer to every problem that you face. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, has an answer to every burden that you carry.
If he had not become a man, if he had not put on a body of flesh and blood, he could not have redeemed us. He had to become a man to die.
In America, we don't worship government, we worship God. We want all children to have the opportunity to know the blessings of God. We will not allow the government to censor sermons, to restrict the free speech of our pastors and our preachers and the people that we most respect.
And welcome. Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Billy Ray Parrish, with another episode of Talking Points for God Gospel Radio Ministries, the seat of a nation. This is Talking Points, and we are live. I hope each and every one of you had a very blessed and happy Thanksgiving. I hope you're recovering. I hope you've already recovered, but if not, I hope you're recovering. It was a very wonderful day for me. It's a blessed day for me always. Each and every one of us should live as though every day is Thanksgiving because, well, we should be thankful for all that we do have. Today's program will not be as in-depth as other programs because I want to get back to the basics here with this program. I want to bring it all together. I want people to understand what's really going on here. What's going on is Donald Trump is fighting for not just his political career. He didn't have one before 2016, but he's fighting to restore a once great and proud nation. A once great and proud nation that has been retransformed time and time again. It's been knocked down and bulldozed over several times. The great thing about our nation is that we do have a constitution in which lays the path forward for not just victory, but for Americana. If you're from the South, you understand what Americana is, but if you are a patriot, then you also understand what Americana is all about. Before we do go any further into detail, as we have since we began the Talking Points program for the Seat of a Nation, I want to introduce you to and play Mr. Lin Wood, who has become a political rock star in this turbulent times in which we are living. We are witnessing some of the most chaotic and unexpected situations that we have ever experienced as Americans. If you thought 9/11 was bad, and it was, we experienced what it was to be punched in the back, in the mouth, to be hit in the mouth, but we also, in the coming days, weeks, and months, and years, learn what it meant to be betrayed by your own government. This is not the time or place to discuss 9/11 and what did or did not happen then, because this is a different period in time. This is about restoring this great nation. Donald Trump is leading that fight, but helping him are great patriots, including Mr. Lin Wood.
And so with that being said, we have been able to bring someone into the fold, and I'm talking about someone who's probably has one of the most brilliant minds, legal minds, in this country. Yes. If you think I'm lying, ask CNN and some of those others who attack everyday people and try to destroy their reputation and change their lives forever. Y'all join me in bringing in a fighter who's fighting for you, for Georgians, and this president. Y'all welcome Lin Wood here.
Fight back. I love you too if you're not behind the camera and you remember the media. How you doing? I was sitting around Tuesday night watching the election returns. I've loved politics all my life, since I first voted in 1972. And I saw what I assumed was going to happen. I saw President Trump building up what I believed was going to be almost a historic landslide victory.
It was.
And then all of a sudden, every network, including Fox News, started doing what they do best. They started lying to the American public. And they took a victory from Donald Trump and they called it a lie. They took a defeat from Joe Biden and lied and said he won. And they sent you to bed, turning off the count of the vote so you could wake up tomorrow, the next morning like I did, and go, what happened?
And many people are asking, what happened? Because just like Mr. Lynn Wood there, most of you went to bed with Donald Trump in, not just with momentum, but in an insurmountable lead. He had victories that it was impossible to catch him. He had 83% of the vote in Pennsylvania. He had a 600,000 vote margin. How did Joe Biden catch up? In Atlanta, Georgia, or just Georgia in itself, the state of Georgia, with a 100,000 vote lead and 60,000 votes left to be counted, somehow these news agencies did not want to call the election for Donald Trump. And there's a reason for that. And that's why we're here. That's why we at God's Gospel Radio Ministry, and me and Boom here with the Seed of the Nations, Talking Points, why we are going to get to the bottom of what happened. Now, we know why these things happen. These agencies are, it's not conspiracy to say that these agencies are in collusion with one another. This was the narrative with Donald Trump and Russia, that they colluded together for Donald Trump to beat Hillary Clinton. That was never proven because it didn't happen. They weren't in collusion, but these news agencies are in collusion with one another. It's no longer conspiracy to say that our media is the enemy of the people, and they truly are. Not every single journalist is evil. Not every single journalist reports fake news or fake information. But there's a reason why so many of them sound just like repeating boxes in themselves. Because 90% of the corporate media and the entertainment in this country, in the world, are owned by 6 major corporations. So there you go. 6 companies or major corporations own 90% of your entertainment industry. And that includes the mainstream corporate media, which is why so many of these talk shows or news shows sound the same. I remember in 2016, I hadn't caught on yet. I knew that there were certain stations that you shouldn't watch because, well, they were in the pocket of the Democratic Party. And you got the point that they were for one candidate over the other. You understood that. But you didn't know, I didn't know just how deep it really went. I remember right after the RNC in 2016 when Trump accepted the nomination, they were saying it was a dark speech. And when I say they, I'm talking about every news agency, every talk show, every news program was repeating the same message. It was a dark speech. It was a dark speech. It was a dark speech. How does that happen? If you have independent news people who are watching the same thing, they're not going to say the same thing. These are independent people, right? They have their own freedom of thought, the freedom of the press that is guaranteed in the Constitution. However, when they're all saying the same thing, it makes you think, there's something up with this. Why is it that the guy who is talking about freedom for Americans, freedom for all Americans, Donald Trump, why is this a dark speech? He wasn't talking about uniting the world. Uniting the world will never happen. It's never going to happen. It's a pipe dream. It's one that these leaders talk about, but let's be honest here. It's never going to happen. In fact, you can't even find 60-70% of people in one country who are united together. Even after 9/11, it didn't stay that way long. What we're seeing now is similar somewhat to what we saw in 2000 with Bush v. Gore. The only difference here is that in 2000, Al Gore was the president, and it looked like he was going to continue to be the president, so they were hopeful for that. Now that Donald Trump, the Republican, he is fighting for justice, they want him to quit. They want him to hand it over to Joe Biden right now. They want him to concede, and they wanted him to concede on November the 4th. He knew what the game was. He knew what they were going to do. He knew the playbook, which is why he gave that speech in the wee hours of November the 4th. And he explained that we won a great victory, but this was the biggest political hoax ever pulled off on the American people, or pulled onto the American people. And you know something? He was right. And he's still right. The difference now is we see what's going on. Of course, not everybody is going to understand. One of the programs that I did last week, there was a woman, and I do not recall her name. She was in the chat room. She was discussing how she thought Trump should concede. She said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, but she was talking about how last time around it was similar for Donald Trump. What we're seeing, the situation with Joe Biden, the same electors and so forth, was what we saw in 2016. So Trump should concede because he lost. He didn't lose straight up. That's the thing. That's the only difference. In 2016, Trump won fair and square. Hillary Clinton was so confident that she was going to win, she didn't even go to the battleground states, which at the time, these states didn't appear to be battleground states because they hadn't been for a long time. Places like Michigan hadn't been won for a Republican in almost 30 years. And Wisconsin, the same situation. You're looking at states that hadn't gone for Republicans since 1988. Since 1982 or 84, since 1980. I mean, we're talking about a long history. Trump pulled them off. Reagan Republican, or Reagan Democrats, as they used to call them, the blue dog Democrats. She was so confident that she did not go to these states. She did not campaign. So she just wrote them off, and she shouldn't have done that because her message was terrible. She really put her foot in her mouth when she talked about the coal industry. She wanted to wipe them out. So she meets with a coal miner there in West Virginia. And I remember that. I'm sure a lot of you do as well. And it's been 4 years ago, so it may not be as clear to you as it is to me, but these people are not for us, we the people. And we're seeing this in the state of Georgia, actually. Georgia is a red state, a very deep red state. But we're seeing what happens when politicians get greedy and they are tempted with more and more money. The state of Georgia is a hotbed for Hollywood. Hollywood loves to make movies in the state of Georgia. And they do this very often. This was surprising to me when I learned just about how corrupt Brian Kemp is. Donald Trump endorsed him in 2018 as he ran for the governorship there, the gubernatorial race there in Georgia. And Donald Trump has recently said that he regrets his endorsement for Brian Kemp because Brian Kemp, as Lynn Wood has pointed out, is not only silent, but he's in hiding right now. And there's a reason he's in hiding. He has taken a lot of money from the Chinese, from the Dominion people. We've talked about Dominion different times on this program. There's a lot of skepticism at play right now. In fact, and this is strange, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I've ever seen anything as strange as what I'm about to tell you, but in 2020, out of the state of Georgia, and this is coming to our attention here within the last few hours, registered voters who live at USPS stores in Georgia. You heard me correctly, a UPS store. This isn't their business address or their mailing address. This was their residence. There were 1,062 registered voters, 540 of whom voted on November the 3rd of 2020, listed their residency as the UPS store. There's something fishy about that. It doesn't just smell bad, it looks bad. And it doesn't just look bad, but it is bad. I mean, there is a significant amount of fraud going on here. And you probably remember from the last program, if you were able to watch it. If not, then you can always go back and watch it. But Wednesday night, Sidney Powell filed a lawsuit in the state of Georgia. And here it is actually, of which she explains that 20,311 absentee or early voters in Georgia were registered as having moved out of the state. If the margin of victory, or the margin that separates Trump from Biden is 7,000 or even 12,000. You take those 30,000 or 20,000 votes away from Biden, Trump wins easily. This is why these things have to be exposed. This is why the Democrats, and sadly, a lot of these Republicans, want Trump to concede and just move along. Why is the news media why are they so, I'm sorry, my face is itching, but why are they so quick to dismiss this maneuver by Donald Trump? Why do they not want Trump to continue on with this? There's a reason for it. Because they understand what's going to happen if he does win, if he is successful. And there is a path. There are several paths, in fact. We are going to go over those. The main narrative here is the fight's not over with. The more that I hear Joe DeGeneva and Victoria Townsend, two of the lawyers, very respected lawyers, who are working on behalf of Donald Trump, Lynn Wood, Sidney Powell, who are working on behalf of Donald Trump, they have their own law practices. They are doing their own things, but they are working on behalf of Donald Trump, although they are not being paid by Mr. Trump. The more that I hear these brave patriots come out and say Donald Trump will win the election, the more I realize that they have all the evidence. It's a lot like this. There is smoke, and where there's smoke, there's usually fire. In the front, there's a lot of smoke. In the back, there's a lot of smoke. So the fire is right there in the middle. The legal team has to prove what happened. They have to prove that something fraudulent did happen. And that's what they're doing now. They have all the smoke, and all of us see it. Even the Democratic media sees it. MSDNC and so forth understand what's about to happen. They've even tried to started to change the narrative away from the 2020 presidential election to a potential war in the Middle East with Iran. I believe it was Sunday, maybe it was Saturday. I believe it was Sunday. A nuclear scientist in Iran was killed. Not really sure of the details though. There's a lot of gray lines there. You don't really know if it was an Israelite attack, if America was involved, or if it was just Israel being afraid if Joe Biden takes the reins. And of course, we know that's not going to happen. Then they asked permission from America to go ahead with the strike. We're not sure yet 100%, but we do know that something did happen and an Iranian nuclear scientist was killed. Israel is scared to death that if Joe Biden does take over as president, that there is going to be some kind of conflict there in the Middle East. When you look at the narratives that they put together over the last 4 years, it was always about Donald Trump was going to start a war in the Middle East. He was going to start a war with North Korea. He was going to start a war with Iran. He was going to escalate wars with Iraq or with Afghanistan or whatever the narrative was. It was all a false flag. It never was going to happen. Donald Trump ran on bringing our troops home. He wanted our troops home. Now, as we can see, none of those narratives came to fruition. He didn't start a war with North Korea. In fact, what did he do with North Korea? He met with Kim Jong-un, who also met with South Korea. That was the first time in many generations, or many decades, a couple generations in fact, that had taken place. That's historic. That summit that was held in the summer, the summer of 2019, that was historic. The media didn't want to cover it like that, though. Now, Fox was better. Fox was not yet at the time as bad as they are now. And Fox has paid the repercussions of going over to the dark side. They have lost 32% of their viewership since election night, including myself. I honestly could not tell you who is all on the up and up over there anymore. I am sure that you have some of the regular players like Brian Kilmeade, who was really good. He was there on Fox and Friends in the morning, and he did other programs throughout the day, or whenever somebody needed a replacement, he was there. He was really good. He actually wrote a book about Andrew Jackson, Old Hickory himself. He was a really good one. And you have a lot of good ones over there at Fox. But they're pushing the bad ones. And there is a power struggle there at Fox News. You have a lot of the new guard, I guess you would say, who is fighting to go to the dark side, while the others, the older guard, wants to stay as they were, and you're seeing who's winning out. Tucker Carlson has started to go over to that side. Now, granted, what he did do was challenge Sidney Powell. But Donald Trump is still tweeting out some of his stuff. So if the president is doing that, then I guess Tucker's maybe not as bad as we expect him to become. We shall see. And now I want to show you this here about another part of the lawsuit that was filed by Powell in Georgia, and talking about the Dominion software. This was accusing agents of acting on behalf of China and Iran. This is big news here. This is in Georgia. Why would international agents have any reason to manipulate our elections? Think back to 2016. The narrative that came out of the 2016 election was Russia, Russia, Russia. Russia manipulated our elections. Did that happen? I tell you what, I don't think it did. I don't think Russia was actually involved in our elections. I think this was all a hoax. And there's several reasons why I say that. And the fact that Iran and China were trying to manipulate our elections, and did manipulate them, and the media is trying to give them a pass, and actually is giving them a pass, lets me know even more so that Russia did not do as the narrative said. I don't think Iran is our ally. We know they are not. They have not been our friends since Jimmy Carter ended the friendship, or at least the partnership, with the Shah of Iran back in the 70s. I'm not sure that Jimmy Carter ever did anything right as a president, but I know he didn't do this right. And we've been paying the consequences for 50 years now, or for near it, for almost 50 years. History does repeat itself, especially if you don't know your history, the history that is being passed off to our children. It is not real history. Think about what we are seeing. Over the Thanksgiving holiday, for example, we were told, don't have our friends over, don't have our family over, do not spend time with one another. Sacrifice for the greater good of society. They told us, you're selfish if you want to be an American. You're selfish if you want to live like free people. You're selfish if you want to worship God or be with family. However, you can go to strip clubs, but you can't go to church. You can go to school, but you can't go to church. Send your kids to school and let them be indoctrinated. Guess who donates to our educational systems? China. I first learned about this when COVID first hit, and me and Mike were doing study and research for the Seed of a Nation. This was when we were actually doing the Seed of a Nation regularly. Back in the, it probably wasn't summer, but back in the spring, back in March, February, March, end of winter, beginning of spring. There's been so much to come out. And thank God for technology. I'll tell you why. Technology has been a lot of good. It's been a lot of good for us. Look at how we're bringing the news to you. I'm not part of the media, I'll tell you that. My reach is not big enough to be called the media. Maybe I'm a source of information, and if I am, then I am thankful for that opportunity, but I'm not part of the media because, well, again, my reach is not big enough to be part of the media. But I'll tell you this much, I am thankful that I have a platform that I can get to people, that I can reach people. And if just one person is listening to me, and if they are taking in what I'm saying, then I am thankful for that, then I am grateful for that opportunity. Again, we should wake up being thankful for everything that we do have, and being thankful for what God is going to bring to us next. Now, the constitutional path. There are different areas of victory, or paths for victory for Donald Trump. You're seeing Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood, Joe DeGeneva and Victoria Townsend, and lawyers like that on one side. Then you're seeing Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, and his legal team, his actual legal team, on the other side. What they are doing, they are bringing together the constitutional process. They are out there showing people how this legal process was manipulated, how the Constitution plays into this. And then Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell are out there gathering evidence to show people what really happened, not what they assumed happened. George Papadopoulos, who was on the Foreign Advisory Board panel for the Trump campaign in 2016, pointed out earlier to keep the faith because they have it all. And the more that comes out, the more I realize they have it all. The more that they expose, the more I know that trust these guys. I know people are losing patience with this, and I understand why. Because we want things to be done the right way. We want to know that things were done the right way. But they weren't, we know that. which is what's coming out. This is why Pennsylvania, the House and the Senate there in the state of Pennsylvania, is filing joint legislation to have their electoral votes given back to Donald Trump. That's a big step. If one state falls, you know more will follow suit. The first one to go down is always the hardest. It's like in baseball. The first hit's always the hardest to get. The first home run is always the hardest to get. The first win is always the hard to get. Now, of course, number 2, number 3, number 4, they're never easy to get. But once you have the first one, it just seems like the weight is off your back. You have all that weight taken off, and it just feels much easier. What state's going to be next? I don't know. Yesterday, there was a big win in Georgia. And Georgia is a mess right now. It is chaotic as it gets. You're talking about a red state that was bought off. You're talking about a red governor that was bought off. Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State of Georgia, bought and paid for. The same thing you're seeing in Pennsylvania. Of course, it's a little different in Pennsylvania because that is typically a blue state, but it is controlled by the Republicans. But you're seeing all across the country just how weak and sad the Republican Party is. Where is the Republican leadership leading the fight for Donald Trump? Ronna Daniel, the chairwoman for the GOP, the Republican Party, or the Grand Old Party, seems to be moving away from Donald Trump. This should not come as a surprise. She is kin to Mitt Romney. Wonder how she got that job. Just throwing it out there. I did not know that she was kin to Mitt Romney until here recently, but it makes sense why she would want to move away from President Trump. Mitt Romney is a rhino, a Republican in name only. He is not someone you should trust. I believe I read where Bill Gates is seeking citizenship elsewhere. Stay tuned on that. A lot of this stuff is getting more and more interesting, but there are different paths to victory for Donald Trump. That's what I want to talk about tonight. More so because we've talked about Dominion on other programs. Dominion is a big part in this. It's not the only part. Dominion is a family of programs that was used to manipulate the voting numbers, and the way the people were voting. CITO was a really big event that did take place. The server was seized in Germany, Frankfurt, Germany. We did get the server. That has been confirmed by several sources. Close to the situation, the CIA was not involved. They are compromised just like the FBI. Our agencies are terrible. The CIA, the FBI, both are compromised. They are not good. We cannot trust either one, and we should not. You probably seen yesterday, because a friend of mine called me last night, and I didn't realize this was taking place. I do not watch the regular news, ABC, CBS, NBC, or Fox on local stations. So I don't watch 60 Minutes or any of these other news programs. Christopher Krebs was being interviewed by, I believe it was CBS, and he explained how the election was very safe, and that Trump is, well, this is just a Hail Mary situation where he is just stalling for time. He is just staying there in the sunlight or enjoying it for a little bit longer. This is not true. The man was fired because he was corrupt. He was absolutely corrupt. He could not be trusted. Donald Trump even tweeted out explaining this. The recent statement by Chris Krebs on the security of the 2020 election was highly inaccurate, in that there were massive improprieties and fraud, including dead people voting, poll watchers not allowed in the polling locations, glitches in the voting machines which changed votes from Trump to Biden, late voting, and many more. Therefore, effective immediately, Chris Krebs has been terminated as Director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, which is the acronym for that organization or agency in which he headed up. I remember it was probably the day after the election, November the 4th, maybe it was the 5th. It was in the day or two to follow the election, November the 3rd. CISA released the information saying that this was the most secure election in American history. Of course, it's just an organization. It does not have any real boots on the ground. They don't have any real information. This was just a talking point, no pun intended, to downplay what President Trump would eventually claim, which would be his foundation or his legal basis for continuing on with this election process. And remember, this is not illegal to do this. Every candidate has the option of a recount and to take it further. It's just in the situation of presidential politics, this typically doesn't happen, especially in modern times, as both parties have almost all the same interest. And that's a big state, big government, big globalist interest, New World Order interest. It's almost all the same. So sometimes the right people get in there. Donald Trump, for instance, sometimes the system fails. It fails them. It works for us. The point is, the illusion of freedom is real. We are sold the idea of good and bad. Then we go to polling booths and we vote. A lot of times there's fraud involved, and we know it was in 2016. In fact, Hillary Clinton was using the same software or similar software programs to defeat Bernie Sanders in the primaries, and Bernie Sanders knew about this, but, well, he was paid off. He didn't care any longer. He wasn't any longer fighting for the people. He wasn't fighting the good fight. He was just richer. He's at least in this country, one of the richest socialists in the country. And he has as many homes as any socialist on the face of the earth. But that's socialism. That's how it works. The only ones that have anything under a socialist regime or a communist regime are those in charge, the elites. Now, if you have connections with those in charge, then you might have something, but the people don't. The regular people don't. Look at Venezuela. They're throwing their money in the streets because it doesn't mean anything. That pretty colorful money is it's lining the streets because it doesn't buy anything. People are eating flamingos and anteaters down there because they're starving to death. You have to be very, very desperate to eat an anteater or a flamingo. I can't even imagine that a flamingo even has much meat on it. I've never seen one up close, but all the ones I've seen, they're just this very stringy, pink-looking creature. But again, this isn't about Venezuela unless you consider that this software system was created for Hugo Chavez in Venezuela so he can retain power. That's how he kept winning. Same with Maduro. Just look it up. The stuff is coming out. Now with Krebs, he explained last night that what Trump is doing, what he's saying, is not true. Of course, this is what happens when you fire someone. He probably was embarrassed, sour grapes, sore loser, wants to get back at the president. A lot like John Bolton. Y'all remember John Bolton? He wrote a book in which, well, he was bad-mouthing the president. Now, I'll give Bolton credit on one thing. He explained that the comments that Joe Biden said that Donald Trump made did not happen. That right there was surprising to me because I did not think that John Bolton would defend the president after all that he has said about the president. One reason Bolton was fired was because he was war hawkish. He wanted to be at war. Many of these general and foreign policy advisors do want to be at war because, well, war makes the world go around. It depopulizes the population, and these people are for population control. They want to get rid or downsize the population, and that's true. Just research it. Bill Gates is actually, in the scheme of things, we don't realize it, but he is. He's a part of the vaccine push. He's part of the COVID-19 situation. He's part of the Wuhan laboratory in China, the WHO, the World Health Organization. I mean, it goes so deep. We don't even have time to talk about Bill Gates. So let's just continue on with Christopher Krebs, who went on national television and called Trump a liar, which is funny because that's like the pot calling the kettle black, because Krebs is a known liar, and he was fired because he was corrupt. Like Bolton there. He was fired because, well, he wasn't really doing any good. His purpose was not being served. And sometimes you have to part ways, especially when they're corrupt, when they're evil, when they are no longer, I shouldn't say it like that, when they don't serve a purpose anymore. When they don't serve a purpose, you got to let them go. But when they are making a fool of your administration, just like a lot of these generals were. Mad Dog Mattis, who has recently badmouthed President Trump. It was recently discovered that he forgot to mention his Chinese ties, his ties to Communist China, when he was being looked at for his position in the Trump administration. I wonder how that happens. How do you just forget that you have ties to China? Kind of like Dianne Feinstein. She forgot or didn't know that her driver was a Chinese spy. Why is it that when something comes out, it's always China? At least the last 4 years, it's always been China. China is not our ally. I understand that Donald Trump has said that he likes ping. Or I mean, I shouldn't say ping, but he has said different times that he does enjoy China. And I'm sure it's a nice place to visit. It's a very quick place to lose your money. But they are not our allies. They are the enemy. Trump has exposed them as such. He has put sanctions on them. And the executive order that was signed in 2018 as part of foreign interference into our elections, well, they will have sanctions levied against them. What we're seeing with the push against President Trump is an international affair. It's not just domestic. In 2016, they said it was Russia without no proof. We have proof against China, and the mainstream media, the corporate media, is silent. Why is that? That's what you have to ask yourself. Now, back to the path to victory. It's possible. I'm not sure it's going to happen, but it's possible. Like we're seeing in Pennsylvania, they're going to award their 20 electoral votes to President Trump. It's not happened yet, but they are filing joint legislation to do that. That would bring him up to 258, I believe it is. 252, 250, I think it's 252 would bring him up to. We got 232 now with 20. That'd be 252. And it's possible that you could see Georgia come around. Linwood is confident that Georgia will be awarded to President Trump. So let's just say he's correct. It could go in that direction where these different states award President Trump their electoral votes and he becomes president that way. Or neither men, Trump or Biden, they have the required 270 and they take it to the Supreme Court. Let's just say they do that. Supreme Court, the founding fathers did not really truly want for our system or our court system to decide elections, although they left a path open for that. They could send it back to the House of Representatives, where the House would vote on the presidency, the Senate on the vice presidency. The Republicans own the House right now, and they will expand on it in January. If you need 26 votes to become president, that's the majority. You would figure Donald Trump would get those 26 votes since they do own the House, so he would become president that way. So there are several paths to victory for him. I do not know how it's going to turn out. It's possible that states could flip, as you've seen with Pennsylvania. You can see with Georgia. There is a real case to be made in Arizona. Now, I want to tell you, these certifications with these different states, they don't mean a whole lot yet. Not until the electors meet. Electors can change their mind. States, state legislatures can change the electors. The Constitution grants them that power. We have to remember the Constitution is still significant to whatever we do. Although in recent months, over the last year especially, we've seen so many of our constitutional freedoms go right out the door. And we truly have. We clearly have seen that. But as of right now, we are still the most free people on the face of the earth. And we should never doubt this. But if certain people have their way about it, we will no longer be. The bigger push for all this against President Trump is the New World Order. It's complicated, I know. My friend has asked me what would be so bad about the New World Order. He doesn't understand that a one world order or a new world order is a one world government where we serve one government. There is one religion, and the religion is not Christianity. It is loyalty to one's government. Religion and communism cannot coexist just the same way as religion and socialism cannot coexist. Vladimir Lenin explained how the ultimate goal of socialism is communism. They're almost identical. Some differences, but almost identical. They're the exact opposite of capitalism. You are, or you own your own destiny. In socialist or in socialism and communism, the government controls every aspect of your life. That's not what we want. That's what we're fighting against. Or I should say, the independent lawyer of Donald Trump, Lynn Wood, he explains that he is not Trump's lawyer. He works on behalf of the people. He has explained that we may have to fight for our freedom. We may have to fight to show just how much we love our freedom. I hate to say this, but he is possibly right. We may have to defend our freedoms. When President Trump is awarded this election, he will be awarded this election. There's been no winner declared, despite what the media says. The media does not have the authority to declare winners. All the media can do is project who they think will be the winner. We saw in 2016, Hillary Clinton came out and conceded because there was no path forward to victory for her. They didn't have these measures in place like they did in 2016. All the mail-in ballots were to do was win, and they knew Joe Biden could not beat Donald Trump at the ballot box. When he did get down, they could bring in the needed votes to put him ahead. This was always part of the plan. COVID was manufactured by the left as a way to get to this point in time as we are in right now. Donald Trump knew this from the very beginning, which is why he was explaining back in June that mail-in ballots was going to do this. He explained in September that the Supreme Court would take this on. He knew what was going to happen. What the left did not know, and we're seeing this come out more and more, the margin of victory by which Donald Trump was going to win by. They did not expect a huge turnout for Donald Trump. It wasn't just the white population that turned out for Donald Trump. As many in the media would have you believe, as much as they want you to believe that it's only the white population that supports Donald Trump. Donald Trump made real gains in every minority group, among every group of people. You're looking at the Muslim population. They turned out for Donald Trump in a much higher proportion than they did in 2016. It's not because he pandered to them. It's because he brought peace to the Middle East. It's because he finally almost ended 2 wars. And I shouldn't say world wars, but we're seeing 2 wars that has continued to fight for 20 years now. We've been at war for almost 20 years. The people during the Civil War were tired after just 4. We've been at war for 20 years. It's time to come home. We don't have to be involved in everything that goes on across the world. If our involvement is needed, fine. But just because there happens to be something going on in some part of the world does not mean we have to be involved. We don't have to be an isolationist. We don't have to be ostracized from the world. But we don't have to make everything our business. I think most Americans agree with that. I think most in the military agree with that. You have those generals who always want to be at war. Their status gets propped up. They live their comfortable lifestyles. But the majority of the military agree with that. They don't have to be at war. They don't have to fight. Just because you have a military doesn't mean you have to always use it. There is a time and place to defend yourself, just like there is in real life. But you don't have to always go looking for trouble. It'll find you without you going looking for it. You don't have to look for it to find it, but if you're looking for it, you'll find it much quicker. My point is, Donald Trump gained with the Muslim population because he brought peace to that region. For the first time in my lifetime, we didn't see a president who went out looking for war. We have seen war in every president going back to, every president in my lifetime. Every president in my lifetime has created or just expanded a war. That includes Barack Obama. I have had people tell me that Obama did not start a war or create a war. He didn't. But what he did was in 2012, and this was something that he ran on, that he was going to bring the boys home, which he did for a short time. But when he won re-election, he sent them right back. That was all a stunt. In fact, he dropped more bombs than George W. Bush. The Air Force ran out of bombs. That's kind of unheard of, but it happened. He was just like his cousin, Herbert Walker Bush and George W. Bush. They loved to be at war. just like most every other American president. Jimmy Carter didn't do much right, and he didn't. He did have escalations going on. I mean, the man couldn't get anything done. Couldn't get a plane off the ground. He couldn't get our troops home. 444 days we had hostages in Iran, and what because of what Jimmy Carter had done to the Shah, cut off communications with them, friendship, we're no longer allies with them. We have hostages over there for 444 days, and what happens? Reagan wins the presidency, he warns them, and our boys are back home. That's what happened with Donald Trump. Regardless if your enemy likes you, they respect Trump. They understand that he means business. Trump's got this kind of, I'm not saying this in a bad sense. He's kind of got this craziness about him where you don't know what he's going to do. He's unpredictable. You don't know what he's going to do next. You don't know what he's going to say next. You don't know what he's going to do next. The enemy does not like that. Although they don't like that, they respect that. Just look at the involvement of our enemies. They have been trying to get Trump out of office since day one. They were involved in the fake impeachment hoax, and it's been proven. Look at the Mueller investigation. Robert Mueller didn't write that report. He didn't even know what was in it. And I was in Indonesia at the time when the Mueller investigation came out, or the Mueller report came out. And I learned about later, the man didn't know what was in the report. I've seen the video clips, and he didn't. My point is, this whole last 4 years, it was all one hoax after another. And then we're supposed to believe now that the party who created these hoaxes, these scams, these fraudulent investigations, they now want unity after one fake fiasco after another. They now want President Donald Trump to concede. It makes no sense. I mean, it makes perfect sense. Actually, they understand what's about to happen. They understand that he has a rightful path to victory. Again, back to technology. Technology can be used for a lot of good, but it can also be used for a lot of bad. They used these devices to track people, to do their scams, to pull off their shenanigans, one after another. However, what they didn't realize was whatever they do, they're leaving a paper trail. They're using it against us, but it's actually being used against them. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know if they thought they weren't going to get caught, but it was so obvious what they were doing. We went to bed. Donald Trump was leading bigly. I mean, he had a big lead, an insurmountable lead in all these different states. In Arizona, 2.3 million votes were counted in 1 hour, or actually 10 minutes. John Solomon reports 2.3 million votes were counted in 10 minutes. And it took 2 weeks to count the rest of the votes. How does that work? How does that work? It doesn't work unless someone is playing foul. The state of Arizona hadn't gone Democrat since 1996, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, a candidate like Joe Biden beats someone like Donald Trump. It didn't happen. It did not happen. We have the proof. George Papadopoulos says to keep the faith. Keep the faith because they have it all. They're saying that for a reason, because they know it. They've seen the evidence. Lynn Wood has seen all the evidence that Sidney Powell has. They're confident. What they have to do now is just to show what happened. They don't have to show everything that they did. They do have to make it obvious what they were up to. There are statistical irregularities and anomalies, and I just want to correct something. It was not John Solomon who pointed out 2.3 million votes in 10 minutes. It was Paramedic on November the 18th of 2020 at 4:44 a.m. Praying Medic. If you want the actual news, follow Praying Medic on Twitter. Follow him on Rumble. It's Praying Medic, as in medic, an army medic, as he was an army medic. So Praying Medic. Research him. He's really good. Another good source of information is X22, the X22 report on Rumble. He's no longer on YouTube. YouTube scrapped him. So look him up on Rumble. That's where I'm at, Rumble. Check me out because YouTube is censoring me, and it has censored many of my videos. Demonetized it, which is censorship. Anyway, Donald Trump gained with every minority group. Not just the white population. 18% of black men voted for Donald Trump. He gained with black men and black women, the Hispanic population, the Asian population, women, and even the Muslims. He gained with Catholics. Donald Trump's a rock star wherever he goes. 80 million votes he received. Despite what the media is trying to sell you, the man received 80 million votes. At least 80 million votes. This isn't me saying this. Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell, they've seen all the evidence. We're just about out of time for this program. I did not want to get too deep into what we talked about tonight. I wanted to point out the foundation of what the other shows have been about. The fight is not over with yet. The fight still continues. We have to fight this. We have to get this right, because if we don't, we lose our country. I know people say this every 4 years. If we don't fight, we lose our country. In 2016, there was a revolution. The American people took back the country. We have to continue that fight. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. These were not my words. President Ronald Reagan and Edmund Burke. Look them up. Before I go, I do want you to keep the faith. Donald Trump will still be our president after January the 20th of 2021. I am confident in this because there is a constitutional path to victory. These states may see, or enough of these states may see what is going on, that they do award their electoral votes to President Donald Trump. It is in the Constitution. Whatever happens, it's going to be interesting. And Donald Trump will be our president. He will continue to be our president. Do not worry about 2024. Tomorrow will take care of itself. 2024 is a whole different ball game. But I do want to encourage each and every one of you to continue to seek first the kingdom of God. The darkness cannot comprehend the light. Continue the good fight of faith. We have it all. We, as in we the people. It will be revealed to us little by little. And then, when they do go to the Supreme Court, the case will be made. This election is not just about the next 4 years. It's about the future of our country. While we still have an opportunity, we must fight. We must get it right. If we do not, we lose our country. I do thank each and every one of you for joining me. I am your host, Billy Ray Parrish, for God's Gospel Radio Ministries, the seat of a nation, Talking Points, or Talking Points for the seat of a nation. Again, I am Billy Ray Parrish. I ask you to look me up on Rumble. Follow the ministry on different platforms, all on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Look us up. Look me up as well on all the same platforms as well as Rumble. I thank you all for joining me. And before we go, as always, I leave you with this. Stay safe, God bless, and God bless America.
Woken up on November the 4th and found that we knew who our president would be. And nobody wants to have to sit through day after day and endure the chads. Thank gosh we don't have chads this time. Nobody wants to sit around day after day after day after an exhausting campaign to try to figure out who's going to be president, especially at a time when the presidency has never been more important in terms of world affairs. But let me tell you what we got to do. We got to wait. We've got to have patience. Because if we don't do this right and take the time to do it right, God help us if we get it wrong. So thank you for letting me be a part of this today. I thank the President of the United States for asking me to help him. I want you to all fight back.